humans cannot defend against AI adversaries. How do I enable business while being secure? We're going to have these AI systems do work, do things. We need to make sure it's doing the work and things we expect. And it's very, very hard to know that it is a real video. A year ago, it was a photo. Now it's a video. And you think about the implications for society. It's 100 degrees now in Portugal. You can't get a bottle of water if your cybersecurity doesn't work. You can't get the surgery you need at a hospital if the cybersecurity doesn't work.
Well, welcome to the Red Chair. Today we have Jake Seid. Great to see you, Jake. General partner, co-founder of Ballistic Ventures. We've been friends for over a decade, I think, since 2010.
Maybe two.
Almost two. Maybe not two, but almost there. It's great to have you and see you in Lisbon again.
Thank you.
Straight from the Bay Area. Jake, tell us, who are you? What do you do? Where did it all start?
A long time ago in a place far, far away. And Jake Seid, co-founder of Ballistic Ventures. We're a cybersecurity-focused venture firm. And, started my journey as an engineer. I went to MIT, did my undergrad in electrical engineering, computer science, very passionate about how to use technology to have a positive impact, and got my first opportunity in a startup group at Cisco. I was 22, and our big idea way back then was broadband. And turned out it was a good idea. We grew that business from 0 to $1 billion in 2 years.
Which years are we talking?
98 to 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
.com, yes.
Yeah, it was part of the .com boom. So saw that boom and bust, obviously. Thought I was into a startup. I got recruited to a venture firm called Lightspeed Venture Partners, which people wouldn't have heard of. But the group of us then spun out and started Lightspeed Venture Partners in 2000. So I was the youngest person on the team to start Lightspeed. I was 24 at the time. I thought it was just going to be a couple-year journey before I did something entrepreneurial. A couple years turned into 11. Was ultimately one of 6 managing directors on the global investment committee at Lightspeed. So an amazing experience in building the firm and franchise. And in 2011...
And it really became one of the big names in the Valley in 20 years, right?
Yeah. And continues to be a big platform in Silicon Valley and now globally. And in 2011, I said, one of the things that I've seen is if you can take billion-dollar TAMs and, transform them, that's great. If you could take $100 billion TAMs and transform them, that's great. But there were these select opportunities where if you could take $1 trillion TAM and transform it, that was a special opportunity.
$1 trillion total addressable market.
Total addressable market. And I asked myself, look, I missed Google and I missed Amazon, even though I had friends going there in the late 90s. What $1 trillion TAM was left that had not been transformed by technology? And actually, real estate came to the top of my list. And Zillow, Trulia, if you know those companies, they were the content version of that pillar, of the real estate pillar. And I said, hey, I know what comes next. It's going to be the commerce version of that pillar. And every pillar has a content and commerce play when you bring it online, when you bring that pillar of the economy online. And so built a company called auction.com, became the largest online transactional marketplace for real estate. So as president, built every functional area, had about 800 people in my reporting organization, and we ultimately grew it to $9 billion a year of transactions. And that business went on to get acquired and did well. Went back to venture capital. And
which year?
In 2015, 2016, went back to doing venture to bring my operating experience and venture experience to help entrepreneurs. Started with a solo capitalist platform that I built up called Stonebridge, where I invested across cloud and then this emerging area of regulated industries that were moving online, just like real estate. So was an early investor in Brex, for example, in the fintech space, and Blend that went public. And so that was one portion. And then another portion was enterprise, kind of from my Cisco and Lightspeed background. And that's where I did a lot of cyber investing, a lot of infrastructure investing. And in 2021, I got together with some friends that I'd known for a long time. And we started Ballistic Ventures because we really believed that there was an opportunity for a dedicated fund to address the big problems of cybersecurity. And that cybersecurity went from being this who cares issue. Oh, change the passwords, restore the backups. Who cares? The CEO didn't even know who the head of cybersecurity was in their companies, to this now being a CEO level issue, a board level issue, and ultimately an existential issue for our daily lives, right? We can't get on a plane. We can't get in a car. We can't buy anything. It's 100 degrees now in Portugal. You can't get a bottle of water if your cybersecurity doesn't work. You can't get the surgery you need at a hospital if the cybersecurity doesn't work. And so we said, let's bring this great group of folks together to try and tackle important problems in cyber, and built Ballistic around that ethos.
I mean, that seems amazing. And now with AI, again, this becomes an even bigger issue, right? Because it might work for you or against you. How do you see this sort of conjunction of, the clashing of two worlds, AI and cyber?
I think you framed it well. So, we think about there's three buckets of how AI impacts cyber. Bucket one is the adversary is going to use AI, but you have to remember that the adversary is not using a guardrailed LLM. They're using stuff with all the guardrails off. With guardrailed LLMs, people can manipulate a guardrailed LLM to attack in a very sophisticated way. So you can only imagine, if you pull all the guardrails off, what you can do. We've now also moved from this kind of notion of generative AI to agentic AI, to multi-agentic systems. So
levels of agents working for you.
That's right. So, imagine, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of agents that are
undermine you, or
trying to get into your organization, trying to undermine you. So that requires AI to be used by the defender, because humans cannot defend against AI adversaries. So that's the other pillar, and that's obviously what we focus on, is how do we use AI to improve all these areas of cybersecurity? There's another related area to that, which is security for AI. So not only am I using AI to defend against an attacker, but now if I have an AI system, how do I know the AI system I built it is going to be good and do the right things? And there was a great story of somebody who said they were an engineer, and they said, great, I'm going to, build an agent to do some of my work. I need to take care of this Kubernetes container, and codes up this agent to maintain this container. And then there's something about the agent that made it decide that the most efficient way to take care of the container was to delete it.
So taken care of.
now, the work to be done is minimized and it's fully taken care of. How do you make sure? So that's not an adversary, right? That's AI.
Question of incentives, right?
Does it do what you expect it to do or not? So
right.
There's another pillar, which is security for AI. We're going to have these AI systems do work, do things. We need to make sure it's doing the work and things we expect.
Because there will be other agents trying to infiltrate your own AI and trying to sort of redirect it,
poison it,
and sort of destroy whatever good they were doing.
And you can imagine the tension, and this is an age-old tension in cybersecurity, which is, how do I enable business while being secure? And, historically, that has been a trade-off, and we've all experienced kind of security that makes us jump through a million hoops. It's not clear business will tolerate constraining the AI that has business benefits in order to make it more secure. So the things that we look for in that third category is, how do you do both? How do you get rid of this false choice of I'm either more secure or I'm moving fast in business?
There's really no choice, right? And otherwise, the risk is immense. This almost makes me think of, sort of kind of Jedi versus Sith.
Battles,
right? Because it's just so, how do you wrap your head around such complex problems where actually we as humans have no chance on understanding what's going to happen?
That's right. And that's where it's going, right? And ultimately needing AI to fight AI and defend against AI attackers, and needing AI to make sure the AI we use isn't doing something
compromised.
Compromised, or doing something that is unexpected. There's another area of AI that you might not view as cybersecurity, but actually is very core to our ethos, which is misinformation, disinformation, and deepfakes.
Yes.
And my partner,
it's like double agents, right? I mean, how do you know that your AI is not a double agent, is not spreading lies or doing stuff that is actually against you and passing information to other AI agents which are against you?
In the enterprise, but from the consumer standpoint, it's also challenging. If we see now a video, is that video real or not? If there's a picture of the Pentagon being bombed, then is it real? Is it not? If there's an audio of anybody saying anything, is it real? Is it not? And so we're now moving into this world where people ask the question, I don't know if I can believe what I see or what I hear. And you think about the implications for society when people can't believe or are forced to kind of make a guess on, is it real, is it not?
We're kind of in that sort of realm already with the real people.
Yeah.
At least with the AI agents coming to confuse us, right?
we're in that world with real people, but
not to name names.
But it's amazing how sophisticated and how you watch a video today and it's very, very hard to know that it is a real video. A year ago it was a photo. Now it's a video. Now you could have, and we see this actually where there are people who are on a Zoom and it looks like the CEO of a company. It sounds like the CEO of a company. And they're saying, you've got to wire $10 million to this email I'll send you. And the wire gets sent because the CEO was on a Zoom. And it was a deep fake. It was a person.
Did this already happen?
This has happened multiple times now.
Oh my God.
So, again, back to the implications of AI, it's both, the traditional attack and defense that's now just going to go at warp speed, but it's now this infiltration of our minds, right? And
because it creates parallel realities, right? And
it creates a parallel reality.
Which one is the real reality?
That's right. And we have the saying that, the weakest surface is the human surface when it comes to attacks, because, it's now very easy for us to get faked out as a human. And as an employee in an enterprise, what's happening is adversaries understand that employees in certain functions, their function is to be helpful to solve a problem. And, if you're a help desk, if you're an IT manager, and now using deepfakes, you can now, get that person to reveal credentials, to give you access, to download something that compromises their system. And so this human surface.
Yeah. And we know for sure that people are going to try to do that, and they're already trying to do that, right?
They're already trying.
They're already trying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all feels a bit hopeless. I mean, where's the hope? I mean, what kind of deals are you doing? You don't have to tell me names, but what kind of technology and people are trying to sort of fight back and be the Jedis in this story?
Yeah. So, we have companies, in this area of deep fakes and misinformation and disinformation. And it's going to be the cat and mouse game that, parallels what we saw with virus and antivirus.
Right.
People come up with viruses that pass the antivirus, and the antivirus gets better, and the virus gets better, and you play this cat and mouse game. So now we're going to go through that with misinformation, disinformation, and deep fakes. We believe that there's an evolution towards architectures that we call zero trust. And so traditionally architectures in cybersecurity were kind of like your key code at the front of the building. Mm-hmm. You get the key code, you walk in the building. Now I could go into any room. I could go up the stairs. I could go down the stairs. Zero trust is, hey, when you go in, you actually get escorted by a guard to that conference room you need to be in. When your work to be done is up, you get escorted out of the conference room and out of the building. And there's no way you're going to walk to any other place or be able to do any other thing other than what you were specifically intended to do. And so these zero trust paradigms across identity, application security, or cloud security are things that we think about. The other important transition that's going to happen is ultimately we have to build more securely from day one. You can't just build stuff, build technology, and then fix all the bugs at the end of the day, because there's no time for that. And it's going to get exploited very rapidly if you have a bug. What we have to do instead is build securely, and then you don't wind up having all these vulnerabilities that could be easily exploited. And then on the other side, we're thinking about how we do things more in our runtime environment. So again, as systems are running, where you could actually have security that doesn't impair business value. And that was, again, the whole trade-off between building production systems that were secure and what we have historically, which is, no, we just want them to run as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. Now we want both. We want them to run fast and efficiently in production, but have security that works and doesn't force the trade-offs of old. So those are all the kind of the themes that we're thinking about.
How do you see, I mean, obviously, this is quite advanced in the US. Do you think there's an edge in the US in this particular sector or this particular problem? I know you don't do deals in Europe generally, but you see everything that's happening in the Valley and across the US, and you probably don't have a vision on China. But how do you see the US stacking up against other continents or other major powers?
In cyber, I'd say the most entrepreneurial activity is in the US and Israel. And, Israel has had a long history of people getting trained in the military.
And you think in this new era, they're also on top of their game?
Yeah, I'd say, in this new era, Israel and the US
keep on being at the top.
Are kind of today the powerhouses in cyber entrepreneurship. That said, the other thing that we're seeing is, if you're a smart young entrepreneur, you typically got pulled to where the opportunity is. And the thing that's changed in cyber is now you can build 10 billion market cap companies. You could build 100 billion market cap companies. So we think that the smartest, aggressive entrepreneurs will now be thinking about cybersecurity, whereas, 10 years ago, they might have been thinking about crypto, right? That's where all the opportunity was.
Right.
And so I think that transition will mean that in Europe and other places, it'll just be the raw talent that's looking for the biggest opportunity to build large companies will now see cyber as one of those areas that they should be going after. And I think that has really shown to be the case. Palo Alto is well over 100 billion market cap company. CrowdStrike is near 100 billion. There's a number of like 50 to 70 billion market cap cyber companies, Fortinet.
And do you think that they are, at those valuations, I mean, are they justifiable on a multiple level, or is it just a hype?
I think there's a lot of substance. I'm not a public markets guy, so are they expensive or cheap relative to, averages? That's not my forte, but I would say these are companies that are not valued at 100 billion because they're doing $1 million of revenue and it's all promise in the future. It's, they are existential parts of our infrastructure, part of our IT infrastructure now. And the percent of dollars spent on cyber is increasing. So I think the fundamentals are there, that if you look at CIO survey after CIO survey, CIO being the chief information officer who typically controls these different budgets.
That theme is right there at the top.
Cybersecurity, consistently over many quarters has been like the number one area, not one of the top, but number one area of spend increase, number one least likely area to get cut. And so those fundamentals are driving the value that's being created. And again, now it's the board and the CEO are, existentially their jobs are at risk if they don't get this right.
To be. But do you think, in this day and age, I mean, maybe contrary to say, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, where you could sort of develop apps, there was a bit of cutting edge, but it was not deep tech, right? I mean, even SaaS was really not deep tech. Are we not moving into an era of where everything, if you want to stand out and really do $100 billion companies, or even $10 billion companies, you need to be deep tech in some shape or form?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always thought about that approach as, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And here's why. I remember, again, when I started in venture, we were doing a lot of optical networking, very, very deep tech.
Very deep tech.
And we said, okay, here's, somebody's building this very hard piece of optical networking, should create a lot of value. But then like you'd see 15 of those get funded. And it turns out even deep tech can be replicated by folks. And so what we actually think about is, yes, you need to be solving a problem. You need to be differentiated. But in cybersecurity, entrepreneurs need to think more and more about go-to-market. They need to think more and more about reducing friction. They need to think more and more about who that end user is and how to allow that end user to get the benefit with the least amount of work. And so if your trade-off is to go deeper tech or to go lower friction, go lower friction.
Lower friction, because otherwise the consumer will not adopt it.
That's right.
Whoever the consumer is.
That's right. And if you go lower friction, you'll get the footprint rapidly, and then you can start building deeper.
Right.
But if you go deep
with the deeper tech.
That's right. But if you're starting deeper, nobody's using it, then you never raise your B round and C round and D round to be able to, then expand. And so, my view, our house view is actually a little bit of the opposite, which is, of course, you need to deliver value, but do it in a way where the friction is light, get a footprint, and then use your subsequent rounds to build more and more layers on the cake to build your moats.
And so at Ballistic, you invest mostly in local companies around. I mean, do you have that pool of talent, or do you quite often invest on the East Coast or Israel?
Yeah, in the U.S., there's certainly hubs. Silicon Valley is a big hub. DC and the Beltway are a big hub, right? Because that, people coming out of the NSA and Defense Department. And then you'll see, spots in New York, Texas, and Austin. So we'll invest pretty much nationally, but also obviously Israel. And then again, increasingly, we're open. We can invest in any country. We can invest in anything coming out of Europe. We tend to focus on early stage, so seed and Series A is our initial check.
And how big are those checks, seed and Series A, nowadays in your world?
I would say, seed rounds are 3 to 10, so big range, and A rounds are 10 to 30 is kind of the range that we see in cybersecurity.
And what kind of approximate dilution for those kind of rounds are you seeing in the market?
People are generally looking at, between 20 and 30% dilution, depending on
so big tickets, but quite a lot of dilution as well.
Yeah. I think, again, as the company proves itself towards the later rounds, then, less dilution happens. Or people are raising very big tickets for 20%. So I think for entrepreneurs, it's if you raise a little bit more, you take a little more dilution, that's the con, but can you make the pie bigger? Can you hit more milestones? Can you de-risk your business plan? And so, but generally it's 20 to 30% dilution, and then the round sized appropriately based on how mature you are.
Yeah, how much and how much you need to develop the company.
That's right.
And over all these years, Jake, what are the big lessons, the stuff that entrepreneurs really should do or shouldn't do? And a couple of do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I think, for, founders, really you're going to live and die by the quality of team you build. And you really have to, have an exceptional bar for who you bring in at every level, not just, the direct reports of the founder, but every engineer. And, it sounds like motherhood and apple pie, but, it's hard because you need to hire people. And sometimes, waiting and trying to find a good person is hard. And you need work to get done. And so, but I think entrepreneurs who really understand that a big chunk of your time has to be focused on team building. And oftentimes people look for the candidates that are available as opposed to making a list of who's the top 3 in the world. And I don't care if they're available or not, but I'm going to go get them. And, if you have that mindset, then, you're going to be a very scalable founder because ultimately, you scale based on the people you surround yourself with. So I think that is the number one lesson. The other lesson is always think bigger and don't just think like 5x bigger or 10x bigger, push yourself to think 100x bigger. And this sounds like really crazy. And I think for most of us, that makes us feel uncomfortable. But the point is, if you're not pushing yourself to be uncomfortable and how big you think, you're limiting yourself. And think about, Elon Musk and how big he thinks, or Larry and Sergey at Google, how big they think. We see like what thinking really, really big means, to the point where it almost seems crazy having to start a car company. I'm going to go to Mars, right? For most entrepreneurs, thinking 100x bigger, even than somebody thinking big, is not that crazy as going to Mars. So, I think, your investors, your co-founders, always pushing yourself to think bigger. And then, of course, what's your practical path to then get there? But don't cap yourself, right? Because, you're going to work hard to build a small company, just as hard to build, a big company, a small company. Yeah.
That's a great lesson. Thank you for sharing. It was great to see you, Jake.
Yeah, great seeing you too.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Red Chair. Thank you.